set of this fledgling movement that many of you have been part of for decades, and love to hear your ideas. 2 years ago, on the verge of sort of this transformational election, some interesting dynamics in Congress, a group of us got together and created something called Service Nation that was designed to first envision the quantum leap in community and national service, and then to see if we could actually make it happen. And so that we put together a framework, and it was basically to provide millions of Americans service opportunities from kindergarten through beyond retirement, through encore careers. Second, solving big challenges. And third, both domestically and internationally. And I think the great news is what became of it with Harris and his strength within the Obama administration, the people there, and then with this wonderful dynamic between Senators Kennedy and Hatch, 34-year relationship bringing left and right together, ended up being the Edward M. Kennedy Serve America Act. And as I was driving through rural Kentucky and my cell phone rang and I almost didn't answer it, I picked it up. It was Ted Kennedy. He had left Washington. He was ill. He couldn't have been in a better mood. And he said, Bridge, I just wanted to say thank you, Serve America Act. What a great coalition. We've really, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to talk a little more slowly for the translators. I apologize. This is a good time to slow down, actually. And he said, remember when my brother talked about passing a torch? And I said, yes, Senator, I was 1 when that got announced, but I remembered later. He said, well, we've really blowtorched this thing, haven't we? And he had this bellowing laugh, and I thought, here's a man who is living out what Harris and I like to talk about, what the founders really meant by the pursuit of happiness, in capital letters, which was the public happiness, that he had given so much to his country, and now in his name had created millions of service opportunities for Americans, mostly in the United States, that he felt like it had been blowtorched and his time was done. What was disappointing, though, and really gave birth to Service World, and around Service Nation, Obama and McCain stood down one day on the campaign, September 11th, came to our Service Nation Summit, shook hands, and both endorsed the Serve America Act, and we knew that whoever was president, we'd have the president and then a leader in Congress who would be behind it. And it's magical, but we didn't fulfill the promise of international service. And Lex Rifle, Lex, are you here? You should stand up again. There he is. He's a humble man, way in the back. Had envisioned and been working on international service with Brookings and Building Bridges Coalition. Many of you, Partners for America, born out, if I remember, Alliance for Progress. And think of all the new nonprofits that will be born out of energies and efforts we create now. We didn't take the quantum leap in international service. And so the idea was to see if we could tap wonderful people like you. Matt Clausen has been in all these meetings. The Building Bridges Coalition with their 200 plus members, Lex, Brookings, David, and Harris co-leading this effort, and Strobe Talbot in the administration, whether we could envision a quantum leap in international service. And here's what we've just come to date very, very quickly. First, and kind of what's new. First, multilateral and bilateral. The days of simply mobilizing Americans, sending them abroad to the developing world are over. Some Yale students came to see me the other day with their Global Health Corps. It's Americans working side by side with Rwandans, not only in Africa, but in Boston. And Rwandans are teaching us in Boston things that are meaningful. It also has a lot of other innovative components. Second, so multilateral, bilateral, ramping up the capacity of volunteers in country to solve problems. Second, service, not just for service sake, but tackling big problems. In the last administration, we created something called Volunteers for Prosperity. It was designed to embed volunteer service in PEPFAR, the HIV/AIDS initiative, and the President's Malaria Initiative, Clean Water for the Poor, African Trade Development, Middle East Partnership, all these initiatives. And my hope and dream is that we won't just have the Peace Corps out here or some volunteer programs and exchanges in the State Department. Every single department and agency within every initiative will view volunteer mobilization as a fundamental core competence and capacity that can help more efficiently solve problems we want to solve. Third, the growth of thousands of NGOs and faith-based institutions. The AmeriCorps model is very powerful because we give people stipends and educational awards, but they work through Habitat for Humanity and City Year and all these nonprofit organizations. So in addition to Peace Corps, which is government to government, having people mobilized through nonprofit organizations throughout the world now that we have literally hundreds of thousands of them around the world. And then finally, Amanda will talk about it, but measurable impact. We put in place after 9/11 annual census data that measures how many Americans serve, where they serve, why they serve, for those who don't, why they don't. And having that same kind of measurable information for international service, so we can compare Akron to Albuquerque to Anaheim. And Governor Schwarzenegger used the fact that California was 42nd in the country to go to the California State Legislature in volunteering to get state support for his California Service Corps. How can we use data to ramp up efforts on the international front? My time is running short. I'll conclude with, just had lunch with David McCullough last week, and he was very inspired by Service World, and he reminded me of a favorite quote between George Washington and John Adams, which was from Addison's Cato, and it was, we cannot ensure success, but we can deserve it. And so we're going to work real hard. We're going to need great ideas from Partners for America and all of you. And together we hope to have this robust coalition that will make the Sargent Shriver International Service Act a thing that we look back on and say, as Harris reminds us, we cracked the atom of civic power on the international front. And that Ted Kennedy's dream and John Kennedy's dream of a torch was really blowtorched, not just on the domestic front, but on the international front. So I'm excited to be here and learn from you and learn your good ideas. Thank you.